Today I'm reviewing the RSD RS291. If you remember a while back, I got to test one of the prototypes of these before they were finalized, and now we have the finalized version here, and I'm excited to review it and show you a little bit more about it. It's now got a DVO Diamond D2 on it, 150 mil travel. I felt the 160 was a bit much before. The graphics are a little bit different too. We don't have the Star Wars flames on it anymore. I'm running 29 by 2.6s in it, and I have to run the chainstay pretty far back. I'm guessing that's about 430, which should suit this quite well, but the clearance is tight for a 29.26 if you want to go any shorter, just something to mention. But this bike has some really good numbers. It's got a 455 reach in the size medium, right where I like it, 63.5 degree head angle with a 150 mil fork. That is super slack, so you know this thing means business. It's got a 75.5 degree seat angle, nice and steep single. This is truly a modern geometry bike, and chainstays go from 420 to 435 millimeters. The seat tube is nice and short at 410 millimeters, and it's totally straight, so you can fit a super long dropper in there. I love that. One thing worth mentioning, this frame is not light. It comes in at 8.3 pounds for just the frame. That is one of the all-time heaviest frames I've had in on the channel. Final weight for this complete build with mostly my parts came in at 33 pounds, on the heavier end of things, but if you're racing enduro or you want a big, hardcore hardtail, that's what you're gonna be looking at weight-wise for a lot of these bikes. All right, today we're gonna take it on a couple trails where I think it'll come alive well. So I've got a little Easter egg in this video with an announcement hidden somewhere in. Make sure you're looking for that. So right off the bat, I love the seat tube angle. It's just about perfect. I offer a bike consultation service for people looking for the next bike. I do that on Patreon. And lately I've had a handful of patrons who've been saying, I don't really like the modern approach. It feels weird to me. I don't like feeling like I'm sitting on top of my bottom bracket. I don't like being so far forward that I feel like I'm over the front. And it's real important to know if that's you or not, to know what you like, because we seem to have a lot of bikes in two categories: a modern forward shifted geometry and a more old school relaxed, sitting on the back of the bike, more upright, just chill position. I love these aggressive modern hardtails. Oh, this ride's good. Really good ride position. Bringing this down to a 150 from the 160 was a good choice. I didn't think it'd make a huge difference, but it is noticeable. Now the DVO Diamond D2 only comes in a 51 mil offset. I can feel that. Not a deal breaker by any means. I do prefer shorter offsets myself, but after 2 rides, you'd be used to this. I recommend you get out and ride both and see which ones you like. But these are all subtle changes, like a 44 to a 51 mil offset. You'll probably notice it, but it's like a 3% difference, not like night and day difference. This is a really tricky climb. It's awful on a hardtail. There are just lots of rocks stuck in the trail that don't move, and it kills your rolling momentum. With a full suspension, you can kind of hit into them and keep your momentum. Not with a hardtail. So this is a good place to test the climbing. Man, I don't know why, but I'm climbing a lot better on this than I did on the prototype. Could be that slightly lower front end. The bike doesn't feel quite as heavy. It carries its weight well. You're not gonna mistake it for a 25-pound bike. And let's be honest, you shouldn't be looking at a 63.5 degree head angle bike with a 150 fork if you're looking for a lightweight 25-pound zippy bike. So yeah, while this is modern geometry, it's not a handful to ride. Like the Salsa Timberjack, the new one, the 2022 model, that bike's a handful to ride. You really have to be on point, and your technique has to be dialed to ride that well. Really balanced feeling bike. I don't feel like I'm over the front or over the back. I feel like I'm right in between the wheels. This is the first bike that RSD has built designed for 29-inch wheels. The middle child can take it, and I love the middle child. It's the bike I've owned the longest. I love that bike. But with its bottom bracket height, it really is suited for 27.5 plus the best. The bottom bracket's a little high for a 29er, and they fixed that on this. Got a 55 mil bottom bracket drop, so still not uber low like the stiff squatch. Ooh, tricky. This bike is calm when the trail is not. So this bike isn't incredibly supple. Hang on, I gotta stop talking for this climb. It's surprisingly maneuverable for what a big bike it is. Big wheelbase, big tires, slack head angle. Oh, balance is great on it. That was easy. I'm not fighting the bike anywhere. So yeah, I'm a fan of the little bit shorter fork, the 150 on here. It wakes this bike up a little. Got a little more pep, less of a plow shred machine. In fact, if you like the middle child, or the idea of a middle child, and you want a 29er version, sure, you could do that. I think this might be the better choice. This is never going to be my bike packing bike. Just too slack for that. It's definitely biased for the downs, but it climbs surprisingly well. It's not quick and zippy. Reminds me a bit of the Pasila Hamari with a little bit more playful nature. Man, this thing is composed. I'm not crazy about DVO forks. I've never got them dialed. This one feels a little chattery. Good little technical climber, I'm impressed. Yeah, I felt like when this had a 160 on the prototype, I was fighting it a little. I couldn't really wake it up, but this feels like a better all-round bike. Good 3-foot step in there. All right, this is where this bike's happy. And the loose chunk, steep. Yeah, it's controlled. It doesn't feel like a massive bike. Some 29ers with 150 forks just feel huge. So I size my bikes based on how they're going to be ridden. A steep, chunky trail like this, I'll size up. And that 455, yeah. So on stuff like this, I size up to like a 450 to 465 mil reach. For flatter, flowier, more rolling terrain, I like 435 to 445 reach. I size up way bigger than what Lee McCormack suggests with his rad sizing. Rad sizing doesn't work for me, but I know it works for a lot of people. So I'm glad it's an option out there. I much prefer longer reaches than he recommends, unless I'm building a pump track bike. It's a beautiful bike, simple lines. I know a lot of you love that straight line from the head tube to the rear dropout. Looks good. RSD's always done a great job at having modern bikes. A lot of companies release a bike and it's already 2 or 3 years behind the curve when it's brand new. RSD's always been at the pointy edge of the spear. Oh, I love this steep seat angle. It just feels great on this thing. Steep seat angle, slack head angle, long reach, super adjustable chain stays. It really picks up where the middle child left off and carries it on even a little bit further with the 29-inch wheels. And that's a huge compliment because you know I love the middle child. Despite the modern Geo, you don't feel super hunched over on this bike. I feel like I could actually do an all-day ride on it, surprisingly. I'm not super stretched out, super reached. Whew! It likes to jump and manual a little bit. Oh yeah, man, this thing wants to fly. The faster you go, the more it wakes up. Having that 150 fork on there, I can just charge into stuff. I don't want it to be over. I'm gonna continue a little bit more. I'm in a really comfortable all-day riding position, and that's hard to do, and the only way I know how to do it is with a steep seat tube angle. So you're gonna feel over the bottom bracket more. Some people love that, like me. Makes technical steep climbs a lot easier for me. Other people who ride flat stuff and who are used to old school bikes are not gonna like it. And that's not unique to this bike. A lot of the people I consult with say, oh, I ride aggressive stuff, black and double black diamond, super steep, lots of chunk, I want a modern Geo. We work together and they get a modern Geo bike, and then 3 months later they come back and say, I think I was a little off. Maybe, you know, now that I think about it, I don't ride that much chunk or aggressive terrain. It's really more blue flow stuff. I think I got the wrong bike. And we end up having to go back and get them a bike that's better suited for their terrain. But man, this thing is surprisingly comfortable and relaxed for all-day riding. And with that, I want to make an exciting announcement. RSD is going to make this bike in titanium for 2033. I don't do many shuttled rides. I don't do many lift access rides. I have to pedal everywhere I go, so good lightweight pedaling through the day is important to me. And this will do it. It's just a little heavy and slow on the ups. And like traversey stuff like this, it just takes so much energy to get up to speed. So I just end up sitting back a little and relaxing. Yeah, surprisingly, it doesn't feel quite as choppered out as the prototype. And that's why you have to be careful with my prototype reviews, is they're prototypes and they're not finished. And because of the feedback from that, we ended up with where we are today on the RS-291, and it's great. The DVO Diamond's holding up well. I prefer my helm. Yeah. Oh man. This bike is so composed. What really surprises me about this bike is how well it climbs and how good it feels seated. It's that tall stack and steep seat tube angle. The bars are just right where I want them to be. I'm not hunched over, straining my back. I'm relaxed and upright, just like I like to be. But if you primarily shuttle, a heavier bike actually has its advantages. They bounce around less, they change line less, they're more planted, they plow better, they often feel like they have a lower center of gravity. And I appreciated that stability today. But when I'm putting down miles, you know, for a 30-mile day, I'd be tired on this thing. Wow, this thing surprised me with how different it feels over the prototype. They made little changes and it made a noticeable difference. Alex reached out to me and said, I want you to try it now that it's in production model. And I said, is it that different? And he says, surprisingly, yes. And I'm so glad he did, because yes, it is totally different than that prototype. I feel like it's better in every way. There was no reason this needed 160 mil travel ever. Let's rate this thing. Climbing, position, 10 out of 10. Whether you're seated on gentle uphills or long fire roads or punchy technical stuff where you're out of the saddle, it climbed extremely well, but the weight held it back. It is just a little bit tiring to ride. Descending, I'm gonna give it a 9.5 out of 10. It's super solid, even in slow, flowy stuff. If you have modern technique and you can get over the front, you can really charge hard, even on flat blue or green beginner intermediate trails. But on like steppy, steep stuff is where it came alive. I do still feel that a 150 fork's too much for what I like. I feel the front end diving a little bit too much and the Geo just changing. Whereas with the 130 fork, it stays higher in its travel. But I know a lot of you do like the 150 travel. But yeah, it's super comfortable downhill. I don't feel like I have to really get over the front. I don't feel like I have to really lean back. You just feel like you're in the middle of the bike all the time, which is a great feeling. Playfulness, it's not quite as playful as the RSD middle child. That little bike, there's something magical about it. It's probably the smaller wheels too. With 2 6s on there, I can't get the chain stays any shorter. Whereas on the middle child, I could actually get them even shorter, and it would manual and bunny hop and play a little bit more. The middle child feels a little more like a trials bike. This feels more like an enduro bike that just wants to fly downhill. It reminds me a lot of the Kona Hanzo ESD. It's not quite as playful, not quite as supple. They were both heavy. The Hanzo ESD had a little more secret sauce and was a little bit more fun to ride, a little more chill. But I feel like this was, geo-wise, a little bit more appropriate, even though they look very similar on paper. So let's talk about who it's for. This is for people who like black and double black diamond trails and who embrace a modern geometry, though you don't have to ride it quite as aggressive and modern as a lot of other modern bikes. So you have to embrace it, but you don't have to be fully on board with the super longest, slackest stuff. This is nothing like the Marin Elroy, which just felt awkward. That wasn't even modern in my mind. It was just extreme. And this is way more rideable than a bike like that. And there's nowhere I would prefer the Marin Elroy over this. This is better in every way. This bike's also for heavier riders who can get this to flex a little bit more and who want something super sturdy that they don't have to worry about breaking the frame. I think this bike is fantastic for people who like technical climbs, like getting up shelves and bunny hop moves and big muscle moves. But who's this bike not for? People who are putting down 6 to 8 hour days. Obviously, it's just going to wear you out. I don't think this is going to be a great bike for petite riders or riders with less upper body strength. So there it is, the RS-291, the final edition, not the prototype, with a shorter fork, which really improved this bike. And don't forget, if you're going to order an RSD bike, use coupon code PARTY to save 5% on your entire order. If you guys want to pick my brain about bikes or components and chat about what might be a great fit for you and your needs, I offer a bike consultation service on Patreon. Head over to Patreon, sign up for a month, get the advice you need. If you need another month, extend it another month. If you only needed 1 month, cancel at the end of that month and go enjoy your new bike. I can't tell you how many people have told me, I wished I'd used your consultation service before I dropped $3,000 on a bike that was totally wrong for me. So I love helping people avoid costly mistakes, and I love helping people make tweaks and get experimental and learn about their bike, make it fit better for them, learn how to upgrade it smart within their budget with their parts, learn how to build out a frame. A lot of people will sign up for my consultation service saying, hey, I already bought my frame, but I need help picking a fork, or, this is my budget. Where should I spend this? Because I don't know if I should go full XCR drivetrain in a budget fork or bling fork in a budget drivetrain. And I love helping people navigate that crazy world. So when you're ready to shop for your new bike or pick my brain, sign up on patreon.com. Thanks for loving Hardtails, and thanks for partying with me. There's a party in the mountains, and you're invited.